A beautiful nurse goes missing. Did she simply walk away from everyone she loved, or did someone make that decision for her?
Beyond death, nothing could keep her away from her kid.
On November 16, 2015, 28-year-old mother Peggy McGuire dropped off her son Ethan at school outside of Eufaula, just a 16-minute drive from the town. It was just like any other day, except that she never made it back home. Her last known communication was a phone call with her stepfather, Donnie Davis, where she mentioned she was driving home to where she lived with her son and his father, Thomas McIntosh. The investigation into her disappearance had been ongoing ever since, but with recent developments, the spotlight was once again put onto Peggy's vanishing. Where did Peggy McGuire disappear to after dropping off her son? What could have happened to her? Welcome back to Real Crime Storytime, where we shed light on under-the-radar cases from across the country. Today we take a look into the disturbing case of Peggy McGuire, which was never solved, from 2015. But before we delve any further, please take a moment to show your support by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and clicking on that notification bell to receive the latest videos straight to your inbox. Without further delay, let's dive into the case. Eufaula is a town located in Oklahoma, known for its rich history and scenic beauty. Situated near the shores of Lake Eufaula, the largest lake in Oklahoma, the town offers a variety of recreational activities such as boating, fishing, and camping. Eufaula is also home to historic sites and landmarks, including the Eufaula Dam and the Eufaula Indian community, which adds to its cultural significance. Who knew that this idyllic setting would also be the center of an unsolved mystery involving a young mother? Peggy McGuire was born in the year 1987 and spent her formative years in the idyllic town of Eufaula, Oklahoma. With her mother Betty Davis and stepfather Donnie Davis by her side, Peggy grew up surrounded by the beauty and simplicity of the country. Peggy was a true country girl, with a love for the land that ran as deep as her roots. Her love for the great outdoors knew no bounds, and she spent most of her days surrounded by the breathtaking beauty of Eufaula, Oklahoma. With a heart as big as her beloved herd of cattle, Peggy was a genuine and caring soul who radiated kindness wherever she went. She was known for her warm, bubbly personality and her infectious laughter, and everyone who met her couldn't help but be drawn to her friendly and outgoing nature. Her furry companion, a loyal dog, was her constant companion, and she also had a soft spot for her herd of 150 goats. In Eufaula, neighbors are more than just acquaintances. They're family. Elizabeth Leeper, Peggy's cousin, best friend, and co-worker, who lived a few miles away from Peggy's home, was always just a phone call away. Their bond was unbreakable, and Elizabeth knew that Peggy would be there for her, just as she always was.
How would you describe Peggy?
Just a really, really sweet, sweet soul. Big heart, cares about everyone.
But most of all, Peggy cared for a boy named Thomas McIntosh, whom she met in high school. She fell head over heels for Thomas, despite him being known for his abrasive personality and tendency to bully others. They shared a deep passion for the country lifestyle, with Peggy taking care of their animals and Thomas working as a ranch hand. But as time went on, it became clear that Thomas wasn't just unpleasant to be around. He was downright cruel to Peggy. He was notorious for his rudeness and social ineptitude, and his behavior often crossed the line into outright cruelty. Despite the abuse she endured, Peggy remained devoted to him, hoping that he would one day change his ways. Peggy's relationship with Thomas was far from the romantic ideal of two people in love.
She was beautiful, beautiful. She could have had any guy she wanted, and he was so awkward, rude, and unsocial.
Rather, it was marred by his intense jealousy, which often spiraled into uncontrollable rage. She was extremely sociable and had a lot of friends, both male and female. Whenever Peggy would speak with other male friends, Thomas would become consumed with anger, and his violent tendencies would emerge. He'd lash out by smashing her car windows, breaking down doors, and even punching holes in the walls. It was a frightening and abusive situation that left Peggy feeling trapped and alone. The couple was on and off constantly, and on one occasion, Peggy found herself battered and bruised after Thomas unleashed his frustration on her.
I don't know how many times he broke her windows out of her car, smashed the doors in.
Over jealousy.
Yeah.
She turned to her best friend Elizabeth to help to take her to ER, as her nose was bloodied and broken from the incident. Elizabeth urged Peggy to tell her what happened, and after some hesitation, Peggy revealed that during a lunch date with Thomas, he'd lost his temper, pulled out a gun, and struck her in the face with it. Despite the protection order in 2011, Peggy still had feelings for Thomas and believed that he would calm down and change for the better. She hoped that starting anew in Indiana with her baby boy Ethan and Thomas would bring them closer together. So they moved from Oklahoma to Indiana after Thomas got a new job there. Peggy was a loving, amazing, and devoted mother. Despite her struggles with Thomas, she remained devoted to her role as a mother and worked tirelessly to provide a happy and safe home for her family. This was seemingly the last straw for Peggy. She had finally mustered the courage to press charges against Thomas for his domestic abuse and violent behavior. She left Indiana and went back to live with her mother in Oklahoma. However, Thomas was not ready to let go of Peggy just yet.
When she came home from Indiana, she was broken and beaten, but I think something clicked in her finally that she was not going back.
He played on her emotions and made her believe that he would change his ways. With his persuasive tactics, he convinced Peggy to come back to him and drop the charges. Thomas had a way of twisting Peggy's thoughts and feelings, making her doubt herself and her decisions. He preyed on her love for their son, manipulating her with his phrases. Peggy was torn between her desire to protect herself and her son, and the guilt that ate away at her for keeping Ethan away from his father. Eventually, she caved in and went back to Thomas, hoping against hope that things would be different this time. This time, Thomas moved back to Oklahoma and bought a house, and the couple moved in together. Although they were living together, Peggy made it clear to Thomas that their relationship was only that of co-parents and nothing more. She did her best to keep a respectful distance from him, but Thomas had other ideas. He'd often tried to invade her personal space, making her feel uncomfortable and uneasy. Peggy knew deep down that this situation was not sustainable, but she was determined to do whatever it took to protect her son. But little did she know that this was just the beginning of a series of unfortunate events that would ultimately lead to her disappearance. Peggy saw her situation as an opportunity to pursue a career that would not only give her financial independence, but also a sense of purpose beyond just being a mother. Nursing seemed like the perfect fit for her caring and compassionate nature. Peggy poured herself into her studies and clinical rotations, often staying up late into the night to finish assignments and studying while Ethan slept. Her dedication and hard work paid off, and she graduated with honors in June 2013 and was immediately hired at Wellington Hills Nursing Center. She was finally able to provide a stable life for herself and her son. Peggy had been holding on to the hope of escaping Thomas's clutches for a long time.
She decided she was going to become a nurse and better her life for her and her little boy, and she didn't need him.
She knew that she had to get away for the safety of herself and her son. So she started making secret plans, moving her belongings little by little to her mother's house and finding a new place to live. She'd even started seeing other men, including a man named Richard from Texas, hoping to find someone who would treat her and Ethan with the love and respect they deserved. But fate had other plans for her, and she never got the chance to put her escape plan into action. On November 16, 2015, she called her stepfather to discuss plans for remodeling the back deck on the house. He said he needed measurements, and Peggy said that she'd call him back after she got them, but she never called him back. The day after Peggy's phone call with her stepfather, her absence at her niece's ball game sent waves of concern throughout her family and friends. They knew Peggy to be a devoted aunt who never missed a game or event. Panic set in when all attempts to contact her failed. Her phone remained on voicemail, and unanswered texts piled up. It was out of character for Peggy to disappear without a word. On Wednesday, November 18, 2015, Elizabeth still hadn't heard from her friend and decided to go check on her. The first stop was Thomas's house. Elizabeth was worried and decided to go wait at Ethan's school so she could see if Peggy would pick him up as she always did. She waited until school was out and saw that it wasn't Peggy but Thomas who came to get Ethan. This was way out of the ordinary, and at that point, Elizabeth knew something was wrong.
So I'm sitting in the school parking lot and Thomas comes to pick up Ethan.
Elizabeth frantically searched for Richard's phone number, hoping he could provide any information about Peggy's whereabouts. When Richard picked up, Elizabeth's heart raced as she asked him about his date with Peggy the day before. Richard's voice was soft and apologetic as he explained that he had never made it to Oklahoma due to unforeseen complications, revealing he'd never seen Peggy the previous day.
I called Betty and I was like, you need to call the cops right now. She's not here. She should be. She was supposed to meet with this Richard guy.
Within hours of the report, they got their first break. Peggy's brother found her truck abandoned in the parking lot of a bar close to their house called T&J's Ice House off Highway 9. He immediately called the police and they rushed to the scene to investigate. As they looked over the abandoned vehicle, they noticed something strange on the surveillance video from the bar. On November 18, 2015, at 5:20 a.m., during a violent storm, Peggy's truck, a 2012 Toyota Tundra, had pulled into the parking lot, only to be abandoned by a mysterious figure who quickly disappeared into the darkness. The footage was too dark, and the storm caused visual issues as well, so they couldn't get a good view of who was driving the truck. It just looked like a person in a hoodie with the hood pulled up. They created flyers with Peggy's description that were passed out around the area. Her wavy blonde hair and striking blue eyes made her stand out in a crowd. Standing tall at 5 foot 10 inches and weighing between 140 to 160 pounds, Peggy had a scar on her right knee, pierced ears, and a tattoo on her lower back of a horseshoe with stars and a 4-leaf clover with faded initials JNS. As a missing person, it was crucial to get her information out to as many people as possible. With the news of Peggy's truck being found, Thomas rushed down to the bar to speak with the police. But when he arrived, instead of showing concern for Peggy's safety, he began speculating about her intentions. "She must have run away," he said confidently. However, the police didn't share his optimism and continued their investigation. That was when the young Ethan allegedly told his family member something that could dispute his own father's story. Despite Thomas's troubled history, he wasn't named a suspect, and the authorities didn't seem to be doing much to find Peggy. The rumor started swirling around the small town of Eufaula that the sheriff's department appeared to be dragging their feet in the investigation. There were no formal interviews, no search warrants, no official searches for the missing mom. After 2 weeks of inaction from the McIntosh Sheriff's Department, the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation was finally brought in to help with the case in December 2015. Special Agent Jenny Verdon wasted no time in addressing the suspicious evidence in Peggy's disappearance. She watched the surveillance video from T&J's Ice House over and over again, carefully studying every detail. Investigators reached out to her new boyfriend, Richard, hoping to gather more information about her last known whereabouts. Richard was cooperative and provided them with vital information that would help them in their investigation.
That friend verified that she told them that she was at home and that she was, making beef jerky.
You're referring to the guy she was dating?
Yes,
Is he the last person to talk to her?
yes, as far as we know, he was.
He recalled having a phone conversation with Peggy after she dropped off her son Ethan at school. The investigators listened intently as Richard helped them piece together Peggy's last known movements. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, or OSBI, started by tracking Peggy's cell phone records, hoping it would lead them to some clues. They also wanted to find out where her phone last pinged to get an idea of her last known location. In addition to that, they planned to search Thomas's home and the surrounding areas to find any evidence that could lead them to Peggy's whereabouts. The team decided to start with Peggy's and Thomas's cell phone records, which showed their approximate locations on the morning of November 16, 2015. In the farming community where Peggy and Thomas lived, the townsfolk were buzzing with rumors about what could have happened to Peggy. As days turned into weeks, the focus of these conversations gradually shifted towards Thomas's strange behavior in the hours following Peggy's disappearance. One neighbor, who preferred to remain anonymous, said that they saw Thomas frequently driving around in his truck, looking anxious and restless. They combed through the tractor, searching for any trace of evidence that could connect Thomas to Peggy's disappearance. In their search, they found what could have been traces of blood or rust in the tractor bucket, but the wear and tear of time and weather made it difficult to confirm. The investigation wouldn't stop there, as OSBI obtained a search warrant for Thomas's house and vehicle. However, their search of Thomas's house proved to be more fruitful, as they discovered bloodstains on the couch, utility gloves, and a utility bucket. Though the samples were worn down after 3 long weeks, they were tested for DNA, but unfortunately, the results were inconclusive. The state investigation team geared up for what would be their most extensive search yet. With a fleet of drones hovering high above and helicopters circling the area, a team of cadaver dogs bounded eagerly across the rugged terrain. They meticulously combed through 80 sprawling acres of land in search of any clues that could lead to Peggy's whereabouts. It was a grueling task, but the investigators knew that covering every inch of ground was essential. Thomas also got an attorney who pulled out all the stops in the attempt to exonerate his client of any wrongdoing. He challenged the reliability of the witnesses' recollection, claiming that they must have confused the days due to the storm that hit the area. The defense attorney also sought to undermine the prosecution's case by questioning the nature of Peggy and Thomas's relationship. He suggested that the two were romantically involved, not just friends. Moreover, he said that the abuse accusations were unfounded since the charges and protection orders against Thomas were consistently dropped. He even insinuated that Peggy's return to Thomas time and time again proved that the allegations were baseless.
They could find absolutely no evidence that Peggy was harmed or that she was murdered.
Even after the extensive efforts by Peggy's family and the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, Peggy's case remained unsolved. Do you have any thoughts on what could have happened to Peggy McGuire? Where did she disappear, leaving her son and family? There were many theories regarding Peggy's disappearance, but authorities believed that this was a homicide and that it was not a stranger who did it, but someone she knew and trusted. The investigation into Peggy's disappearance led authorities to believe that the idea of her running away was far-fetched. She had a young child she cherished, a fulfilling career, and a desire to start fresh without her ex-husband, Thomas. The notion of her running away only seems to be propagated by Thomas and his legal team. A more plausible scenario points to a domestic dispute between Peggy and Thomas that took a tragic turn. It's thought that Thomas overheard Peggy speaking with Richard and became consumed by jealousy. This may have triggered a violent outburst that led to her demise. The theory is that he used his tractor to move Peggy's body to a secluded spot for burial, hoping to keep his heinous act concealed forever. The search for answers continues, but the truth may be buried deep within the land Thomas knew so well. The search for Peggy may have ended in heartbreak, but the fight for her beloved grandson Ethan continued. In 2018, Peggy's mother took legal action, seeking visitation and custody of the young boy from Thomas, who she believed was responsible for her daughter's disappearance.
He was involved in some way?
Yes,
Why?
because I know how he was. I've heard his threats. He's broke her nose. He's done so much to her. She was dating. He didn't want another man to be around his son.
Is he a person of interest, Thomas McIntosh?
Everybody's a person of interest in this case until Peggy McGuire is found.
Despite her best efforts, Ethan was ultimately placed in foster care, leaving Peggy's mother to wonder what kind of life her grandson would have without the loving guidance of his mother. A man named Billy Taylor, who knew Peggy for just 6 months, offered a $150,000 reward for any information leading to the discovery of Peggy McGuire. However, tragedy struck again in February 2021 when 13-year-old Ethan McIntosh went missing. He was last seen driving a tractor in his Oklahoma town. The abandoned tractor heightened concerns, and a widespread search ensued. Thankfully, after an intense effort involving police and volunteers, the missing boy was eventually located. He was discovered alone, 20 miles away from where the search began. He was severely dehydrated and was found sleeping just a few miles away from his house. However, this happy ending has only served to cast a harsh light on a much darker mystery: the still unsolved disappearance of his mother, Peggy McGuire, who also disappeared 6 long years ago in the same small town. This case again opened the door into the investigation surrounding her disappearance, and now only time will tell what Ethan and her family can know about Peggy. Despite a massive search effort and an ongoing investigation, Peggy has yet to be found. The disappearance of Peggy has left her family, friends, and community in a state of grief and uncertainty. What are your thoughts on this case? Share your opinions in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to unfold.